I'm 82 years old. My biggest regret is that I was so busy saving for a rainy day that I didn't notice it was already pouring. I let the best years of my life with my husband Walter slip by, waiting for a tomorrow that got used up by today. I have a stack of travel brochures here on my lap for places we never saw. And the worst part? We could have gone. We had the money, we had the time. I was just too scared to spend either. I was a driver my whole life, always planning the route, watching for hazards. Turns out, my own caution was the biggest hazard of all. Let me tell you what happened. It started about 15 years ago. We were retired, sitting at our kitchen table here in Pine Hills. The sun was coming in. Walter slid this glossy brochure for an Alaskan cruise over to me with his coffee. I remember the feel of that paper. He had this quiet, hopeful smile. He'd even circled a date. I felt that flutter of excitement, you know, immediately followed by the cold grip of practicality. I thought, the bills are paid, we have savings, but what if the car needs work next month? What if the roof goes? I said the words that became a terrible habit for me. I said, let's wait. Let's let the savings grow a bit more. I watched the light in his eyes dim just a little. He nodded. That patient, understanding nod he always had. I took that beautiful brochure and I didn't throw it away. I filed it. I had a special folder in my filing cabinet, organized alphabetically. I labeled it Someday. I put Alaska behind A. It felt responsible. It felt safe. That folder got thicker. The next big thing was our 45th anniversary. Walter knew I loved photography. He bought me this beautiful, fancy camera. It must have cost a fortune. He handed it to me and said, for our trip out west, to photograph the redwoods. His voice was full of that same hope. My heart soared for a second, then just sank. I was worried about the cost. I thanked him, I hugged him, but I said we should practice locally first. Save the big trip for our 50th, a milestone. The camera went back into its box. We took pictures of cardinals at our backyard feeder instead. We settled into our rhythm. We had our local joys, bird watching, golfing. It was fine. It was sensible. But the big dreams stayed in the folder, in the box. Then, on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday, everything changed. We were out on the golf course. Walter took a swing, lost his balance, and fell. It wasn't dramatic, just a heavy, wrong thud. 1 minute he was there, the next he was on the ground, his face tight with pain. The ambulance ride to the hospital in Sterling Heights is a blur of lights and the sound of the siren. My mind was racing, but in an organized way, listing what we'd need, what to do next. They admitted him. He had a bad break. Complications from his age, they said. As he slept in that hospital bed, I tried to do what I always did. I tried to organize. I was tidying his bedside drawer, putting his wallet, his watch in a neat line. I opened his wallet just to make sure everything was secure. And there it was, folded soft as a whisper, tucked behind a faded photo of the two of us, a handwritten list. At the top it just said, with Ruth. Not a bucket list, a together list. I read it. See the northern lights. drive the Pacific Coast Highway, picnic in a vineyard. Simple things, achievable things. Every single one was something we talked about. Every single one was something I'd deferred. I sat there holding that piece of paper, and the full weight of what I'd done finally landed on me. It crushed me. The rainy day I'd saved for wasn't coming. It was here. It was this hospital room, this broken hip, this tiredness in his body that wasn't going away. Our savings could cover this bill, but no amount of money could buy back the years we'd saved it from. All my patience, my organization, my determination. I'd been so determined to build a fortress, but the storm was time, and it had been raining all along. A quiet drizzle of not yet that washed our chances away. Walter woke up. I didn't show him the list then. I just held his hand. I was shattered. But a new kind of determination started in me. It was fierce. It was urgent. He came home from the hospital a different man, slower, quieter. The doctor said the break would heal, but the recovery was the hard part. And you know what? They were right, but not in the way they meant. It wasn't just his hip that was broken. It was our rhythm, that safe, sensible rhythm I built for us. I'd spend my days organizing his pills, scheduling his physio appointments, making sure everything in our Pine Hills house was just so. But inside, I was a mess. That list in his wallet was all I could think about. It was like a ghost in every room. One afternoon, about a week after he was home, I was in the den. I was supposed to be balancing the checkbook, another one of my careful, responsible tasks. But my eyes kept drifting to the filing cabinet. That green metal cabinet had been my trophy case for being a sensible adult. I got up. My hands were actually shaking. I pulled open the drawer, and there it was, right where I'd always kept it, the someday folder. It was thick. I took it out and carried it to the kitchen table, the same table where he'd shown me that Alaskan brochure. I opened it, and there they all were. Alaska, the brochure for the Redwoods tour, a pamphlet for a bed and breakfast on the Oregon coast, a printout for a fall colors train ride through New England. Each one was a little tombstone for a dream we'd buried. I'd filed them so neatly, so organized. I felt sick. I didn't read them. I just stacked them up, my hands moving on their own. I took the whole stack, walked straight to the recycling bin in the garage, and dropped it in. It made a soft, final thud. I stood there for a long minute, expecting to feel a panic, that old fear of letting go of security. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt light, terrified but light, like I'd opened a window in a stuffy room I didn't even know was closed. That's when I remembered the camera. I went to the hall closet, to the top shelf where I stored things we weren't using. And there it was, still in its original box, the anniversary gift. I brought it down, the box dusty. I carried it into the sunroom where Walter was sitting, looking out at our bird feeder. He was just sitting there, quiet. That was the hardest part, the quiet. He'd always been a quiet man, but this was different. This was the quiet of resignation. I set the box on the table next to him. He looked at it, then at me, a question in his eyes. "I need you to show me how this works," I said. My voice sounded strange to me, firm. Today. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just looked at me, and I saw a flicker in his eyes, that deep understanding that had always passed between us without words. He reached out and pulled the box closer. Together, we opened it. The camera was still shiny, still new. We fumbled with it, him with his stiff hands, me with my nervous ones. We couldn't figure out how to get the lens cap off. We laughed. It was a small, rusty sound, but it was real. He showed me the power button, how to look through the viewfinder. "What should we photograph?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. I looked around. "The light," I said. "Look at the way it's coming through the window right now, on your hands." So he did. He turned the camera, focused clumsily, and took a picture of his own hands resting on the arm of the chair, the afternoon sun warming his knuckles. Then he pointed it at me. I probably looked a sight, my eyes red, my hair a mess, but I didn't flinch. I let him. The camera clicked. That afternoon we didn't go anywhere. We sat in that sunroom, and we used that fancy, expensive camera for the first time. We took pictures of the finch that landed on the feeder. We took a blurry picture of the neighbor's cat stalking through our yard. We took a silly selfie, our heads close together, both of us squinting because we couldn't figure out the timer. It wasn't the redwoods. It wasn't an adventure. But for the first time in years, it felt like one. It felt like we were finally using the gift for what it was meant for, to capture a moment we were actually in, not one we were planning for someday. And that's when the real understanding hit me, sitting there with the camera warm in my hands. I'd been so wrong about what security was. All my life, I thought security was a number in a savings account, a paid-off mortgage, a thick someday file. I was a driver. I thought if I just planned the route well enough, avoided all the hazards, we'd arrive safely at this perfect destination called later. But the destination kept moving, and the safety I'd built felt so fragile now. So cold. Real security, I realized, isn't about having a pile of resources for a future that may never come. It's about building a life so rich in now that you have something to sustain you when the hard times inevitably arrive. It's the security of memories. You can't deposit joy in a bank and withdraw it later when you're lonely or scared or broken. You have to spend it as you earn it. Our savings could pay for this hospital bed, this physio, all the comforts. But it couldn't pay for the memory of watching the northern lights with him. It couldn't buy back the feeling of wind on our faces driving down the coast. I'd saved all our money, but I'd bankrupted us of time. I'd saved all our money, but I'd bankrupted us of time. That truth sat with me for days after we used the camera. It was a cold, hard stone in my stomach. I'd look at Walter, napping in his chair, and I'd see the list. With Ruth. I'd hear my own voice saying, "Let's wait." The breaking point came about a week later. It was evening. We were in the living room, the TV on low for noise. He was trying to do the gentle exercises the physiotherapist had given him, his face tight with the effort of just lifting his leg a few inches off the footstool. I was watching him, my heart in my throat, wanting to help but knowing I shouldn't. He finished, breathing hard, and sank back into the chair. He looked exhausted, defeated. I couldn't stand the quiet anymore. I got up and went to the bedroom. I took his wallet from the dresser. My hands were steady now. I brought it back out, sat down in my chair opposite him, and took out the folded list. I didn't say anything. I just unfolded it and held it out to him. He looked at the paper in my hand, then at my face. He knew what it was. He took it. He didn't read it. He just held it, his thumb rubbing over the worn creases. "I found this," I said. My voice was barely a whisper. "In the hospital." He nodded slowly. "I know you did." "Why didn't you ever show me?" I asked. It wasn't an accusation. I was just so tired. He was quiet for a long time, just looking at that list. "I did, Ruth," he said finally. His voice was so gentle it made my eyes burn. "Every time I brought home a brochure, every time I suggested a trip, that was me showing you. You'd just file it away. And I didn't want to push. I didn't want to be the reason we spent money you were scared to spend. I thought I was being patient with you." His words didn't hurt the way I expected. They just settled into me, true and awful. He had shown me, over and over. And I had filed every single dream away, thinking I was being wise. I was the hazard. I was the reason we'd never seen the northern lights. "I thought I was keeping us safe," I said. The tears started then, hot and shameful. "I was a driver, Walter. My whole job was to watch the road, plan for trouble. I thought that's what I was doing for us." "I know you did," he said again. He looked from the list to me. "And we were safe, Ruth. We are. We have a nice home. The bills are paid. We've had a good life here." "But it wasn't the life you wanted," I choked out. "You wanted adventures with me, and I turned every one of them into a line item in a budget. I turned our dreams into a file folder." I was crying openly now, the kind of crying that shakes your whole body. "I'm so sorry. I am so, so sorry." He didn't tell me it was okay. He didn't say not to cry. He just sat there, holding that pathetic piece of paper, and let me fall apart. And that was worse in a way, because if he'd gotten angry, if he'd shouted, it would have felt like we were in it together. This quiet acceptance felt like I was alone in my regret. After a while, I got myself under control. My face was a mess. I felt hollowed out. "What was your favorite?" I asked, wiping my cheeks with the back of my hand. "On the list. Which one did you want to do the most?" He didn't even have to think. "The picnic," he said. "The picnic in a vineyard. I always pictured it. A simple checkered blanket, some cheese and bread, a bottle of wine we probably wouldn't finish. You with your camera, not to practice, but just because you saw a pretty leaf or a weird-shaped cloud. Just an afternoon. Nothing fancy." Nothing fancy. The simplest thing on the list. And we could have done it. A vineyard in Traverse City was only a few hours' drive. We could have gone a dozen times. We could have gone for our anniversary instead of him buying that camera. We could have gone just because it was a sunny Tuesday. "We could have done that," I said, the words aching. "I know," he said. And then he did something that broke me all over again. He smiled. It was a small, sad, forgiving smile. "But we had some good picnics, too, at the lake, remember?" I did remember. A local lake, 20 years ago, packed sandwiches. I'd worried about ants and the cost of the gas to get there. That's when the full weight of it landed. It wasn't just the big trips. It was the spirit in which I'd done everything. Even the things we did do, I'd done with one eye on the clock, one eye on the bank account, my mind already planning the route home. I'd been so determined to be the responsible driver that I'd never once just enjoyed the ride. I looked at Walter, really looked at him, at the man who had quietly carried a list of dreams in his wallet for years, who had loved my cautious, organized self anyway, and who was now sitting in a recliner he might never easily get out of again. The storm wasn't coming. It had arrived. His broken hip, my broken heart. This was the rainy day. And all the umbrellas I'd saved up couldn't keep us dry. I was wrong, I said. It was the simplest, truest thing I'd ever said. About everything. He reached his hand out toward me, across the space between our chairs. I took it. His grip was still strong. "We have right now, Ruth," he said. "That's all we ever really had." And in that moment, holding his hand in our quiet living room in Pine Hills, surrounded by all the sensible choices I'd made, I began to understand. The regret was a weight I would probably carry forever. But it wasn't the only thing I could carry. I could also carry this, his hand in mine, this moment, this awful, clear, honest now. The savings account hadn't protected us from this pain, but maybe, just maybe, this pain could teach me something that would protect what we had left. That's what I learned, holding his hand in our quiet living room in Pine Hills. The savings account hadn't protected us from this pain, but maybe this pain could teach me something that would protect what we had left. Here's what I understand now, at 82. Security isn't just a number in a bank account. It's the security of memories made, of love celebrated in the very moment you feel it. You cannot deposit joy and withdraw it later with interest. All those years I was a driver, planning routes and watching for hazards, I thought the destination was a financial finish line. I was wrong. The destination was every single moment we passed through on the way. And I was so busy watching the gauges that I missed the entire scenery of our life together. The money we saved has comfort, yes. It pays for this roof, this care, these comforts. But it's cold comfort compared to the warmth of the adventures we denied ourselves. The real safety net is woven from shared experiences, not saved dollars. I was determined to build a fortress against a stormy future, but I built it out of later and not yet. And when the real storm of time and age finally hit, as it hits everyone, my fortress was empty. It had kept nothing out, and it had kept everything wonderful in. So if you're listening to this, and you have a someday file, or a camera in a box, or a dream you keep talking about over coffee, I need to tell you something direct. Look at your list right now. Pick one thing, just one, the simplest one, and do it this year. Not when you retire, not when you save X amount. Now. Use the good china on a Tuesday for no reason. Take the weekend trip to that town you always mention. Buy the concert tickets. Stop waiting for perfect weather. The rainy day isn't a future financial crisis. It's now. It's the constant drizzle of busyness, of worry, of I'll get to it. Your life is happening in the rain. Start living in it. Don't let your love be something you schedule for a milestone. Celebrate it on a random Wednesday. That's what Walter tried to show me with his list. He didn't want grandeur. He wanted a picnic. He wanted my presence, not my prudent planning. I know what you might be thinking, that it's too late for me, that my regret is just a warning for you. But that's where you'd be wrong. It is too late for the cruise, for the redwoods, for that drive down the coast. Walter's body can't manage those trips now. But we have today. We have our bird feeder and our golf cart, and we use that camera every single day. We're having our picnic in the backyard this weekend. A checkered blanket, some cheese, maybe a little wine. We'll take pictures of the clouds. We are learning right now to live in the rain we have left. The regret is heavy, yes. I will carry it. But I won't let it be the only thing I carry. I also carry his hand in mine. I carry the click of that camera shutter capturing a finch, a sunbeam, his smile. Don't wait until your list is folded soft in a hospital drawer. Don't be 82 and sitting where I am, filled with a wisdom that came too late for the big dreams. Let my regret be your reminder. This channel is full of stories like mine. People who've lived a long time and learned things the hard way. So maybe you don't have to. If this story, my story, meant something to you, if it made you think of your own someday file, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe and turn on those notifications. There are more voices here, more lessons learned from lives fully or not fully lived. And leave me a comment down below. Tell me, what's on your With Ruth list? What's the one simple thing you're going to do this year? Just saying it out loud can be the first step. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. It lets me know this mattered. And please, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a friend who's always talking about someday. Give them the nudge I never got. And if you've lived long enough to have a story of your own, a lesson you learned that might spare someone else a heartache, there's a form down in the description. Fill it out. Your voice matters. Maybe next time we'll be sharing your story. A book that helped me start to make sense of all this after the fact is called The Gift of Years by Joan Chittister. It's not about money. It's about the perspective of growing older. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested. The rain is here. It has always been here. It is the precious, fleeting time of your life. So go outside, feel it, live in it with the people you love. That's the only security that ever really lasts.